Hello viewers, welcome and thank you for tuning into Elim TV. We are tackling English Form 1 and I am Teacher Cess. Again, if you want to call us any feedback, SMS us to 21450. SMS us to 21450. And today we are going to look at parts of speech which we covered even in our primary school, which are usually 8. So our parts of speech are as following. We usually have nouns, we have verbs, we have adverbs, we also have adjectives, we also have conjunctions, we still have articles, and not only that, these are some of the parts of speech we looked at in our primary school. But now in Form 1, our major interest will be nouns. And we shall start off our class by defining what a noun is. In very simple words, nouns are naming words. Nouns are ones that give us names of places, names of people, names of animals, names of any other thing or even animals. So what we are saying is that our noun names, it is a word that names. And when we look at nouns, we can give a very good example. Kenya. Kenya is a name of a country. So Kenya is a noun. Another good example would be pen. For example, what I'm holding right now is a pen. We have named this item and we have named it a pen. We can also say John. John is a name of a person. And when we name people, then that is what we are referring to as nouns. So nouns basically, they can name animals. For example, cat. So a cat also is a name of an animal. So when we talk about nouns, we are talking about ones that give names. So whenever we are forming sentences and we give a name, then we are talking about nouns. But nouns are of various categories, and that is our interest today. We are going to look at various categories of nouns. One of the major categories we have proper nouns. Now, when it comes to proper nouns, these are ones that name specific places and people. So proper nouns are ones that name specific places and they name specific people. And if you could use your pen to list what are some of the names of people, what are some of the names of specific places that you have in mind. For example, a name of a specific place would be Nairobi. It would be Garissa. It would be India. So these are names of specific places. But we also have names of specific people. And a very good example would be if I have a name like Sheila. If I have a name like John. These are names of specific people. So when I talk about names of specific people, then I am talking about a proper noun. But something so distinct about proper nouns is that all of them start with initial capital. They start with the initial capital because they are names of specific people and they are names of specific places. A very good example would be, for example, if you look at the one Nairobi, N is our initial capital. If you look at the name Garissa, then G is an initial capital. If you look at India, I is an initial capital. Initial meaning the first. So the first letter of a proper noun is always capitalized, and that is why we are calling them proper nouns. It is different from when we talk about a cat, all, a dog, such words don't start with an initial capital. They don't begin with a capital letter. So that is why we are talking about a proper noun. So proper nouns start with initial capitals. Another group of nouns apart from proper nouns is what we call, number 2, that is, we call these common nouns. Common nouns. Now, what are common nouns? Common nouns are names of ordinary things. They give names to ordinary things. They name ordinary things. Or we can call them objects. They name ordinary objects. For example, if you look around you, you're going to see various items that are ordinary. For instance, a pen is an ordinary item. So a pen is a common noun. If you look around, you might see a table. A table is an ordinary thing. Or you might see a book. A book is an ordinary thing. So when we talk about common nouns, we are talking about names of ordinary things. The things you see each and every day. Trees. Talk of trees, talk of any other animal. Talk about a rubber, a ruler. All those are ordinary objects. So when we name ordinary objects, that category of nouns, we call them common nouns. And we have seen so far, this is our class 2 group of nouns. This is our class 2 or group 2 kind of nouns. I want to look, we move to the third type of nouns. Now, the third group we are going to look at, the third group of nouns we are going to look at is what we call abstract noun. Now, abstract nouns, as the word suggests, is something that you can only think of. You cannot see, you cannot touch, meaning it is not tangible. Think of something like love. Think of something like wealth. Or we are talking something like hate, or even happiness. You realize these are just states. These are states which you cannot touch, you cannot even see them, but you can feel them. So what we are saying, abstract noun, just as the one suggests, they are abstract, they are intangible. So we are saying they name states. And not only states, they name states that cannot be seen or we cannot touch using our own hands. For example, can you touch love? Can you touch wealth? Can you touch happiness? Can you touch hate? But you know about them. So these are the ones we used to name conditions, or we used to name states that we cannot just see and touch or smell, but we know they exist. You know that happiness exists. We know that poverty exists, but we cannot touch it. We cannot even smell it, but we know that they exist. So that is the group of nouns we call abstract nouns. Maybe using your pen, can you list down at least four abstract nouns? So the other group I want to look at, which is the fourth group, is what we call concrete nouns. Now, concrete, basically we would look at it as the opposite of abstract, because concrete is something that is tangible. You can touch it, you can see it, you can even tell the color. Unlike abstract, where you could not even tell the color of wealth, the color of love, when it comes to a concrete noun, you can tell, you can see it, you can even smell it, you can touch it. So what we are saying is that concrete nouns, they name tangible objects. For instance, you can touch a book. You can touch a desk. You can touch a door. You can touch, for example, boy, girl, man, All these are concrete nouns. They are things you can use your hands to verify, to touch. So it means that, you, for example, you can say this book is blue. So if you can see the book, then that one is a concrete noun. Concrete noun is actually the complete opposite of the abstract, because we are talking of something we can see with our own eyes, and not only with our own eyes, we can touch them, we can smell them, and even we can tell what color they are. For instance, you can tell a desk is wooden, but you can't tell of what material love is, meaning that now a desk is something that is concrete. Concrete meaning tangible. You can touch it using your own hands. Maybe could you list 5 concrete nouns in your book? Could you list only 5 concrete nouns, because there are so many. Concrete nouns are things we see in our ordinary days and we can touch them. Trees, talk about grass, anything that you can touch. So I want you to go to the next group of nouns. Our next group of noun is what we call collective nouns. Just from the word suggest, collect. Collect means when many things are brought together. So when we bring many things together, then we form something which is in collective form. So collective nouns, we can say, are words, or in very simple ones, they are words that name groups of either people, so what we are saying is that when we talk about collective nouns, these are nouns that name things in their collective form. And we are saying these ones can name either groups of people, number 1. They can also name, number 2, groups of animals, or they can also name groups of things. So when we talk about things and animals and people, when we put them in a group, then we call it a group, or we call it a collective noun. A very good example is when you put students together. What do you call that? What do you call when you put students together in one room? You call that a class. Meaning the word class is a collective noun. It names a group of students who are together. It names a group of students that are together. For instance, if you put some animals together, for example, bring cows together, you can say a head of cattle. So when you talk about a head of cattle, then you are grouping animals together and bringing them together. Another good example would be, you can talk about stationery. Stationery. Now, stationery is when you group a pen, a ruler, a rubber, all that is stationery. For instance, somebody might tell you, when doing an exam, bring stationery. So stationery there means when you bring out every material that is needed for writing. So we are grouping that material together. Another thing would be, somebody will say, bring me a bouquet of flowers, or a bunch of flowers, or even a bunch of bananas. So that one tells us we are grouping those things together. We are putting them together in one group. Another example would be, apart from the ones we have, utensils. When you put spoons, plates, cups, and all that together, you give them one name that is called utensils. And actually, this is what we say, what we refer to as collective noun. And that we are saying a class of students, a hand of cattle, stationery, utensils, furniture. For instance, when you bring chair, tables, and everything that is together, then that one becomes furniture. So all these we see are collective words, and we have said collective nouns, they name groups or classes of items put together. Could you please name maybe 5 collective nouns you know? 5 collective nouns you know. Now moving on to the next category. Now you also realize that nouns can either be count, or non-count. Almost in our primary schools, we used to call them countable and non-countable nouns. What do I mean by that? I mean that they are those nouns that you can count. You can say one, you can say two, but the other nouns that we call non-count, that you cannot use numbers to talk about them. And a very good example of a count noun is a symbol, maybe pen. You can say, give me one pen, but then, or you can say, give me 2 pens. So this one is countable. It is something we can use numbers to count. But there are other nouns that we realize that we cannot count. And a very good example, we can only quantify them. For instance, you can say water. You cannot say, give me 1 water or give me 2 waters, but you can say, give me a glass of water. So you are quantifying. So let's go back to count nouns. Now, count nouns are nouns that we can count. And most of the, one way to identify them is that in their singular form, they take a and an. They take a and an. For instance, I can say, give me an orange. And in their plural form, I might say, give me 3 oranges. I can use numbers. And for instance, I can also say, give me a book. Or give me 2 books. So you realize that count nouns, we can actually count 1, 2, 3. But when it comes to non-count, most of the time, there is no way you can use numbers to count them. And a very good example is maybe petrol. You cannot say that you fueled my car with 2 petrols. It means that it is not countable. It means that it is not countable. And this is one good example you can always give. And another good example would be juice. You cannot count juice, but at least you can say, give me a glass of juice, give me a bottle of juice. So that way you are counting, but you are using something we call a quantifier phrase. You are using something we call a quantifier phrase. So basically what we are saying, countable nouns or count nouns are nouns that we can count. We can say a, or you can use an in their singular form, but non-count are mass. Most of them are mass nouns. And other examples we have given apart from these ones is one like salt or soda. These are words that you cannot say just one, but you can say a crate of soda, a bottle of soda, or you can say a pinch of salt. You only quantify them. So what basically we are saying, we have looked at different categories of nouns. And if to have a recap of what we have had, we have looked at proper nouns, we have also looked at common nouns, we have also looked at countable and non-count nouns, and we have also looked at common nouns. We have also looked at concrete and abstract nouns. So basically what we are saying is that nouns are of different categories. And the next lesson we are going to have, we will also be looking at how nouns form their plurals. How nouns form their plurals. We shall be looking at that because most nouns can take their plurals, as we've seen, when they are countable. They take their plurals. So that is what we shall be looking at in our next lesson. And as I said earlier, if you have any question about English Grammar Form 1, you can always give us our feedback or just sign it and tell us you're watching our programs, and we are so glad. Our SMS number is 21126. Again, 21126. So thank you so much for watching Elimu TV, and all pleasure is ours.